Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a dimly lit ballroom, the air thick with the scent of old wood and whispered secrets. The music is slow, haunting, a melody that seems to pull at something deep inside you. Across the floor, a shadow moves. Not a person, not quite a shape, but a presence. It turns toward you, extending a hand. Dance with me, it murmurs. This is your darkness. Not the crude, cartoonish evil stories, but something far more intimate. The parts of yourself you've locked away, the desires you deny, the grief you silence, the rage you swallow. It's been waiting, and tonight it asks you to waltz. Why does this invitation feel so terrifying? Why does your pulse quicken, not just with fear, but with something like recognition? We've been taught that darkness is the enemy, that to be good, whole, acceptable, we must cut away the uncomfortable, the messy, the primal. But what if that's the very reason we feel fractured? What if the shadow isn't here to destroy you, but to complete you? Consider this paradox. The more you deny your darkness, the more it controls you. The rage you refuse to feel curdles into bitterness. The grief you ignore becomes a hollow weight. The desires you suppress twist into shame. You think you're keeping yourself safe, but in truth, you're dancing alone in that ballroom, pretending the shadow isn't there. Yet it is there, always. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the repository of everything we disown. Friedrich Nietzsche warned, whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become a monster. And when you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. Even ancient myths spoke of this. The hero must ascend into the underworld before rising transformed. So here's the great, unsettling question. What the only way to be free is to dance, not to conquer your darkness, not to fix it, but to hold it close, to let it lead you through steps you spent a lifetime avoiding. What would you discover in that embrace? What power have you been denying because you were told it was dangerous? The music swells. The shadow's hand remains outstretched. Do you step forward, or do you keep pretending you can't see it? You've spent your life running from this dance. Society taught you to. From childhood, you were conditioned to believe that certain emotions, rage, envy, lust, even deep sorrow, were unacceptable. Good. People don't feel these things. Strong. People don't show them. So you learn to amputate whole parts of yourself, burying them so deep you forgot they existed. But here's the brutal truth. What you bury doesn't die. It grows. Carl Jung warned that the shadow, when ignored, doesn't vanish. It possesses you. Think of the politician who crusades against scandal while hiding an affair, the critic who tears down others' art while secretly fearing their own mediocrity. This is a shadow at work. The denied parts of ourselves erupt in twisted, unconscious ways. Why does this happen? Neuroscience reveals that suppressed emotions don't dissolve. They embed themselves in the body, fueling chronic stress, anxiety, even illness. Psychology shows us that disowned traits often project outward. You despise in others what you refuse to see in yourself. Philosophy takes it further. Nietzsche argued that morality itself is often just a mask for repressed instincts, a way to shame the natural human wildness we fear. And yet, the shadow isn't your enemy. Ancient traditions knew this. The Taoists spoke of yin and yang, not opposing forces, but complementary ones. Alchemists sought not to destroy the base elements of self, but to transmute them into gold. Even modern psychology confirms that the most resilient people aren't those who avoid darkness, but those who integrate it. So, why does modern culture still preach repression? Because it's profitable. A fractured self is easier to control. Consumerism thrives on your shame. Buy this to be whole. Social media rewards a curated persona, not the messy truth. Religion and pop psychology alike sell cheap salvation. Just stay positive. But this is spiritual bypassing, a refusal to do the real work of self-reckoning. The result? A world full of people who smile, while their shadows puppet them from below. You feel it, don't you? That quiet tension beneath the surface. The sense that something vital is missing, that you're performing a role instead of living. But what if the shadow isn't the problem? What the real danger is never dancing with it at all. The refusal to dance has a cost. one you've been paying your entire life without realizing it. Think of the exhaustion of keeping up the act, the wasted energy spent pretending you're always fine, the relationships that stay shallow because you're afraid to show your depths, the creativity that withers because you won't face the chaotic and censored parts of your mind. This is the tax of an unintegrated shadow. But the consequences run deeper than personal fatigue. Neurologically, repressed emotions create feedback loops of suffering. Studies on emotional suppression show that the brain's amygdala, the threat detector, becomes hyperactive when we chronically deny unacceptable feelings. The very mechanism meant to protect you instead keeps you in a state of low-grade alarm, interpreting ordinary emotions as dangers to be avoided. You become a prisoner of your own avoidance. Psychologically, the shadow warps your perception of reality. Jung called this projection the unconscious act of attributing your disowned traits to others. That co-worker you irrationally despise? They might mirror a quality you've denied in yourself. The political faction you villainize? They likely embody fears or desires you refuse to acknowledge. These projections distort your world into a hall of mirrors, leaving you reacting to ghosts of yourself instead of engaging with reality. Culturally, our collective refusal to dance has birthed a society of performative perfection, where vulnerability is weakness, darkness is pathology, and any deviation from the curated self is met with shame. Social media accelerates this. We scroll through highlight reels of artificial lives, while our unshared struggles fester in isolation. The result? Epidemic levels of anxiety, depression, and a gnawing sense of existential fraudulence. Even spirituality has been corrupted by this avoidance. The modern obsession with love and light bypasses the necessary descent into darkness. The Nigredo of alchemy, the dark night of the soul. We want enlightenment without shadow work, wisdom without wrestling with our demons. But as Jung warned, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The terrifying truth? Your shadow already leads this dance. Every time you overreact to a minor slight, every compulsive habit, every inexplicable attraction or revulsion, these are the shadow's choreography. You think you're in control, but you're just following steps you refuse to see. The question isn't whether you'll dance. It's whether you'll finally open your eyes and see who's been moving you all along. The way out isn't to flee the dance, but to finally learn the steps. This begins with a radical act of defiance. Stop apologizing for your depths. The rage, the longing, the fears you've buried. They aren't defects to erase, but vital intelligence you've been taught to ignore. Viktor Frankl, survivor of the Holocaust and pioneer of existential psychology, discovered an unsettling truth in the concentration camps. Those who found meaning in their suffering outlived those who clung to delusional positivity. Darkness, when faced directly, becomes a teacher. Here's how to begin the rebellion. 1. Befriend your monsters. Sit with what you feared most about yourself, not to indulge it, but to understand it. When shame arises, ask, what does this protect? Jealousy? What does it reveal about what I truly want? These aren't flaws. They're encrypted messages about your unlived life. 2. Turn projections into mirrors. That person who triggers you, they're an unwitting guide. Next time you feel a knee-jerk judgment, ask, where does this live in me? The qualities we most despise in others are often the ones we've exiled within ourselves. Reclaim them, and the world softens. 3. Create shadow art. Channel what you've suppressed into creation. Write the angry letter you'll never send. Paint with colors that feel forbidden. Dance the way your body wants it when no one's watching. Art is alchemy. It transforms leaden emotions into gold. 4. Practice sacred rage. Civilization runs on repressed anger. Instead of numbing it or letting it explode, ritualize it. Scream into a pillow. Shatter thrift store dishes. Run until your lungs burn. Give your darkness a controlled outlet, and it stops controlling you. History's most transformative figures didn't transcend their shadows. They harnessed them. Van Gogh's madness became his brushstrokes. Nietzsche's isolation birthed his genius. The alchemists didn't discard the base metal. They worked with it until it revealed its hidden radiance. This isn't about surrendering to chaos, but about negotiating sovereignty with your whole self. The shadow isn't the enemy. The war against it is. The music has been playing all along. Will you finally take its hand? Here's the secret no one tells you. Your darkness was never the opposite of your light. It was its source. Every great artist knows creation springs from chaos. Every wise leader understands that compassion is forged in confronting one's own cruelty. The stars themselves shine only because they contain the pressure that might have crushed them. This is the alchemical marriage. When you stop splitting yourself into good and bad, you discover something terrifying and magnificent. Wholeness. Not perfection, but the gritty, glorious integration of all you are. Jung called this individuation. The mystics called it enlightenment. But it's simpler than that. It's finally coming home to yourself. When you dance with your shadow, an astonishing thing happens. The rage becomes fierce love. The grief becomes bottomless tenderness. The flaws become your fingerprints on the world. What once controlled you now fuels you. Because energy can't be destroyed, only transformed. This is how we change not just ourselves, but everything. A society of integrated people doesn't wage culture wars. They've made peace within. They don't exploit or dominate. They create from overflow. They don't fear the dark. They know it's where the seeds wait. The ballroom was never a prison. It was always a crucible. So when the shadow extends his hand again, here's what you now know. This isn't a threat. It's an invitation to become. The music swells. The choice is yours. Dance.